Thanks, Ole. Actually, WeQ is the new IQ, but that was a good turn. So, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me and being a part of the fashion scene, which is normally not the thing I'm walking in, but we're walking in so many different areas. And when you invited me, we thought about 10 minutes, how to squeeze 11 years in 10 minutes. And I will not talk about too much about the school. I'll actually try to talk a little bit more about a term and why we use that term, WeQ, the new IQ, which could not be used and not be existing before, from my point of view, before we started the D School 11 years ago. And D School, in a nutshell, you're told already, we just 120 students coming from about 70 different disciplines, about 60 different universities, about 20 different nations. Every semester, new mixture of students, kind of a full university in a mini setup, highly interesting. And that was the source for a lot of startups in the Berlin scene. We have about 120, 130 startups just falling out of the program. But it was another source for getting in touch with companies, with organizations, because we have one thing, no grades. Second thing, no individual work purely, we just collaborate. The other thing, we have no curriculum, no traditional curriculum. We just have project work. And I just have put out one of the portfolios that was in 2016, because there was a fashion company, Zalando was a partner of us, and that was an interesting challenge, not about fashion, it was actually a challenge. The question was how to handle growth in a rapidly growing company. Who of you is from Zalando? There are Zalando people, you know that probably. What happened that there were people in a team one day, next day, all of the team members were moving at different floors, so couldn't find each other, and that was the challenge for our student team. So, but we have large companies like Bosch, traditional companies, Siemens, Deutsche Telekom, also Otto Group. The Otto Group we were helping through the last, I would say, 6 years. And the interesting thing was, what happened through that was we got in touch with a lot of organizations who learned about the activity of our students. And so we had to build up a professional training program. We were not planning that 11 years ago, but it just happened. We had to do it, and we have now about 3,000-4,000 people run through an open course through a professional track, which we actually developed together with Volkswagen and the Otto Group and SAP and GERTS, to just find out what do people need, what do decision makers need in times of radical transformation to move their culture from a traditional analog culture of doing things and thinking to a digital way of thinking. And so we are using this kind of modules, a lot of people running through that, and it's really interesting that very simple things actually are so attracting. I just put it together in 2 slides. This is the first slide, which I'm using all the time to illustrate what we are doing, which is showing where do we start. We don't focus too much on technology and not too much on the business aspects. If you're looking at innovation, we fully focus on human interests and human values and human needs. And when you started, actually, to be honest, 11 years ago, our friends at Stanford, they had user needs up there. No, not human needs. But through the years, we found out it's not just the user. It's all of us, the producers, the guys behind the scenes. All of us are kind of dealing with more or less intense with digitalization and with all those cultural issues. The second slide is that one. And that is actually our framing of design thinking. And I think it's very important that we were moving it out of the just method approach. We were saying it's first about collaboration. This is why we don't grade any individual, no individual measurement anymore, and that really helped to relieve the intrinsic motivation of people. It does it in the learning phase, but it also does it at the workforce. And this is what we are actually encouraging all organizations to more and more focus on collaboration and get rid of the competitive way of doing things. And collaboration, not just in homogeneous teams, in mixed teams, in interdisciplinary teams. And the second thing is space. So we have to think of physical space. It's really great to be in that old, big thing, this Kraftwerk, and to see traditional work, but now there is digital things coming in, new fashion is being here, and for us, flexibility and variability is key. So we make everything movable. We actually had to invent furniture because there was no working table for a team of 5, 6 people available 11 years ago, so we had to build those things. We had to design it, and it turned out now we have a design thinking line. The third thing is the process. Yeah, there's the method, and it's the method actually what every designer, every architect is using, and which is dealing a lot with observation and a lot with prototyping and making failures. Just fail as early as possible and fail as often as possible, but very early. So why is that important? Why is those 3 things? We found out those are the defining issues for culture. So if you do this in a learning environment, if you focus on teams, on collaboration, get rid of grading, if you focus on flexible rooms, flexible environments, if you focus on a nonlinear iterative process, you radically change the culture. And there is no digital bit and byte involved yet. It's all about culture. It's all about what our friend from Otto was saying in the morning. This is actually key. So in order to change culture, you just have to address very human things. And we do this in the learning field, but we do the same thing with our 3,000 or 4,000 people running through our programs. And it's so important because we are living in a world which is more and more interconnected. And connectivity is getting key. And it's getting more and more intense every day. 11 years ago, when we started our D-School, those things, those pieces of glass were not existing. Can you believe that? Who of you does not have this kind of piece of glass in the pocket now? So all of us are using that. So, and I was looking for easy to remember metaphor, and actually a helping tool for me to see the radical shift and to describe the radical shift we are in. And I was standing in front of my bookshelf, and I was looking at that and looking at the structure and looking at the Brockhaus, at my encyclopedia, and I was thinking, wow, why did Brockhaus stop printing in 2014? Because they found out no one was buying those books anymore. And I thought, wow, this is a great metaphor for our radical change. Because I asked myself, looking at the level of dust on top of my Brockhaus, I was asking myself, do I not want to know anything anymore? Yes, I'm a professor, I don't need to. But yes, of course, I'm using my piece of glass all the time, but I'm using the networked version, Wikipedia, Google, whatever, every day, every hour I'm using that. And I see Reza using the same thing right now. We are doing this all the time. We're looking for something. And I kept standing in front of the bookshelf because that structure reminded me to something. Every time when we start a project, I ask the people, I ask the CEO or the CDO or whatever, CIO, please draw me a picture of the organization. And usually what they do is a thing like this. Yeah, we have 8 departments, and we have management level 1 and level 2, and we have the board up there. And then one thing what I'm doing is I go to the board and I do an A and a Z. And I'm saying, this is Brockhaus. This is the structure of the analog centuries, the analog age, and this is how we had to do things in analog times. But these times are over. We are moving to a new pattern, and this is the pattern of the 21st century. So I draw this underneath. It's quite complicated, actually, to draw that network pattern, even it looks so easy. And then we start discussing, because all of the decision makers, they immediately agree that this is the new pattern, but they're looking at their old pattern, at their old structure, and then the journey starts. The journey our friend from Otto was describing in the morning, which takes years, which is not easy. If you have a large organization, it actually takes a lot of time. And design thinking is a very good tool set for this transformation. because it's really radical. It's not just a little bit. It is moving from the IQ mode, which is 100 years old, the competitive mode, the distribution mode, the dividing mode, to a WeQ mode, to a we quality mode. And this is what we are training with our students, and we find out we are really not far as humans, because our whole education system trains us still, until now. I have a 10-year-old, I brought him to school in the morning, normal Berlin school. Here, they are learning traditional A to Z. They are learning traditional things. They are not, first of all, learning to collaborate. Yes, there are a few exceptions in the education system. One in the university system is the D-School Stanford. D-School Stanford in Potsdam, and there are others, but the majority of the education system is training the old pattern. And this is why I put myself up there with a little cross. I'm saying I'm not very far. I'm dealing with that now since about 12, 13 years, and I find myself trapped all the time in that kind of traditional thinking, the A to Z, the separate thinking. Our students are not very much further, and if I'm talking to companies and talking about digitalization, I sometimes find they are dealing it, or most of the time, I find that they are dealing with it in a way which I try to describe here, and saying, yeah, we have analog F, and now we make digital F out of that. Not seeing that there is a radical pattern change. As soon as you have realized it is about a real severe pattern change, you see there is the thing. You have to look at the connectivity. Software needs to support connectivity between the dots, between the individuals, between the groups, between departments, between organizations, international. And this is what it's all about. And most of the software I'm witnessing so far is still way too much in the upper pattern. It's still way too much just to make a PDF out of a traditional black and white A4 sheet. So I wrote a book about that, network thinking, German, English, and also Chinese. And I just want to end with a view to one company, which is not a fashion company at all. It's Bosch, and we are accompanying Bosch, 370,000 people now since about 3 or 4 years, on their transition from an analog company to a digital company. And they did significant things. I just want to point on two. They asked their people, please redesign your offices. Bosch power tools looked like this before. And they asked the people who are working there, how do you want to work and where do you want to work in the future? And they redesigned it to a much more creative environment. You just can use those pictures. But the even more interesting thing, at the same time, they asked the people, which kind of structure you want to work? What kind of organizational structure do you like in the future? And it was not a top-down decision. Yes, it was actually initiated by the leaders, by the top 10 leaders of Bosch, but actually the people were involved. And one of the board members I'm dealing with most, Uwe Raschke, he's always saying, yeah, Uli Weinberg would have said, we have been that kind of Brockhaus thing. So, and the people came up with something which looks like this, at the right. A cross-functional team, a network of teams, and they were starting slowly but surely to redesign the whole organization within Bosch Power Tools. And this is one part of this huge organization with 17 different departments. But this is the driving part right now, and it's so interesting to see this kind of graphics was coming up, not drawn by us. No, it was coming out of the structural redesign phase of the organization, of the people themselves. And this is what I would like to encourage you to make use of our network, of the design thinking network, to help you, to assist you with this kind of approaches. Because a lot of organizations, medium size, small size, but actually the large organizations are in that transition. And I'm really happy that we have so many connected institutions now who are dealing with design thinking, helping organizations helping individuals on their transformation path. And thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to collaborate with you. Thank you. We have some.
Thank you very much, Uli.